I'm still shaking when I think about it, even though it happened months ago. I honestly need to know, was I a complete jerk for following military protocol to the absolute letter, even though it meant my own family lost everything? Or was I just being smart? Because let me tell you, when my two brothers stood there, literally laughing at my anal, retentive checklists, they had no idea that they were mocking the one thing that was about to save my entire inheritance, and completely sink theirs. This isn't just a story about a will. It's about a betrayal and a ridiculous, lifelong grudge that was settled not with a fist fight, but with a perfectly executed, signed, and dated maintenance log. Tell me, honestly, if you would have done the same thing to save yourself. My name is Alex, and for 10 years, I served in the Army as a logistics officer. When I say logistics, I mean my life was a perfect blend of checklists, inspections, and contingency plans for absolutely everything, from a deployment to a simple Saturday morning motor pool check. That level of detail and adherence to protocol wasn't a choice. It was drilled into me. It became my second nature, my internal operating system. My brothers, Mark and David, civilian to the core, always found this hilarious. Mark was a freelance writer, creative and chaotic, and David was an artist, charmingly messy. They saw my life as a series of unnecessary binders and color-coded tabs. Here comes Major Buzzkill with his clipboard. Mark would joke at family dinners, while David would mimic my stiff salute. It was all in good fun, mostly, until our father passed away this past year. Dad was a successful, self-made man who owned a sizable estate, including a beautiful, historic lakeside cabin that was the center of every family memory. We all knew that cabin was the main prize, and it was to be split equally among the three of us. The will itself was pretty straightforward. All assets, including the cabin, were to be divided equally. However, Dad included a specific, somewhat strange condition for the cabin's maintenance. He'd always prided himself on keeping that place pristine, and he knew we were all busy. The clause stated that for the first year after his passing, all three of us would be equally responsible for the cabin's upkeep, specifically a weekly inspection and a detailed quarterly major maintenance log. The executor of the estate, Dad's lawyer, would review these logs at the 1-year mark. If the lawyer determined that the cabin was not being maintained to a high standard, the person or persons found to be negligent would forfeit their share of the cabin's value, which would then be divided among the remaining siblings. It was classic Dad, a system to keep us all working together and responsible. My brothers scoffed at this. "It's just a cabin, Alex, not a nuclear missile silo," David had said, rolling his eyes. "We'll just cut the grass and wipe down the counters. Who cares about logs?" But I cared. I saw that clause not as an annoyance, but as an inspection order. I created a binding, multi-page document I called the Cabin Maintenance and Readiness Protocol, or CMRP-1. It was an absolute monster. It had sections for HVAC filter replacement schedules, detailed photographic documentation of the roof line, a checklist for all the boat dock pilings, a log for the humidity levels in the basement, and a full 2-page procedure for winterizing the water pipes. I even created an indexed binder with corresponding color tabs for weekly, monthly, and quarterly tasks. When I presented it to my brothers, suggesting we all use it, they actually started lapping. Mark leaned back in his chair, a smirk plastered on his face. "Alex, my brother, my former major," he drawled, "you're taking this whole inheritance thing a little too seriously, aren't you? It's a lake house, not a war zone. We're adults. We'll figure it out." David just burst out laughing, calling the binder the Alex protocol, and promising to use the dehumidifier log for kindling. The contempt was palpable. They weren't just dismissing the protocol. They were dismissing me and my entire decade of professional discipline. We started the year of mandated upkeep. Mark and David, predictably, treated it like a minor chore. They'd show up, toss the grass clippings, and spray some cleaner. When I'd ask for their logs, they'd scribble 3 or 4 vague words on a piece of notebook paper. Asterisk grass cut. House looks fine. Use the hose. Asterisk when I pressed them to use the CMRP1 logbook to document the specific tasks and sign off on them, Mark snapped, "It's the honor system, Alex. We're family. Stop acting like my drill sergeant." For my part, I treated my rotation like a mandatory command inspection. I followed the CMRP1 to the letter. I took dated and time-stamped photos of the attic insulation. I measured the pH of the septic tank. I even had a separate log for when I cycled the well pump to ensure the seals didn't dry out. My binder grew thick and was perfectly organized, a testament to my military-grade attention to detail. As the months passed, a clear pattern emerged. Mark and David would do the bare minimum during their weeks, often skipping tasks or simply assuming they were done. I started getting calls from neighbors about high grass and an untied boat. My heart sank, not because of the extra work I'd have to do, but because I knew this negligence was disrespecting Dad's wishes. But what really worried me was the big quarterly maintenance. The second quarter log, which was their responsibility, included a critical task: checking and clearing the main storm drainage culvert that ran directly under the deck. If that culvert backed up, the water would pool and eventually damage the foundation. I reminded them both via text, email, and a formal CMRP1 notification letter that I physically mailed to them. Mark texted back, "Got it, Major. We'll eyeball it." David just sent a thumbs-up emoji. They completely missed it. This brings us right up to the critical moment, the turning point where I knew I had to make a choice. It was a week before the 1-year mark, and the lawyer, Mr. Thompson, had scheduled a review of the maintenance logs and a final walk through. A massive, unprecedented rainstorm hit the area. 3 days of torrential downpour. I drove out to the cabin, just to be safe, and found the scene I had dreaded. The culvert was completely clogged with silt and leaves, and the water, unable to drain, had pooled into a shallow, muddy lake directly against the main concrete foundation. It was inches deep and already seeping into the wooden crawl space. A complete disaster. I spent 7 straight hours in the mud, clearing the blockage and pumping the water away, documenting every step with a camera and updating my CMRP1 emergency log with the damage and remediation efforts. So that's the situation I was in. My brothers had been lazy, arrogant, and dismissive of the very thing that was meant to protect Dad's property. Their negligence had led to a potentially devastating structural issue that only I fixed. I had their pathetic, one-line logs in my hand, and I had my 400-page notarized and photographically documented Alex protocol binder, which clearly showed that the culvert check had been missed on their watch, and that I had repeatedly warned them. Before I tell you what happened next, the final confrontation with the lawyer, and the ultimate decision I made, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you show the lawyer the full story, or would you bury the log and just take the loss to keep the peace? I decided to show the lawyer everything. My years in the military taught me that accountability is the cornerstone of trust, and, in this case, the law. I arrived at Mr. Thompson's office with my binder, and Mark and David showed up with their crumpled notes. Mr. Thompson, a man who looked like he'd smelled trouble 1,000 times, began the review. He started with their logs. He spent less than 5 minutes reviewing their scribbles before setting them aside, a slight frown on his face. Then he looked at my binder. He didn't just look. He studied it. Page by page, he flipped through the indices, the checklists, the signed-off sheets, and the dated photographs. He paused for a full minute on the emergency log, looking at the time-stamped photos of the flooded foundation, the clogged culvert, and my remediation efforts. He asked me about the specific item on the quarterly checklist that addressed the culvert. I flipped instantly to the appropriate color tab, item 3.4.1. He checked the date of the missed inspection, which fell under their rotation. Then came the moment of truth. Mark leaned forward, agitated. "Mr. Thompson, this is ridiculous. Alex is trying to turn a simple lake house chore into a military operation just to make us look bad. We were busy. We did the major stuff." David chimed in, "Yeah, we all know Alex is obsessed with his checklists. It's a personality thing, not negligence." Mr. Thompson held up a hand. He looked straight at them and then back at my binder. "Gentlemen," he said, his voice slow and deliberate, "your father's will is very specific. The condition was maintenance to a high standard asterisk, and he made the requirement of a detailed quarterly log a contractual part of the inheritance. Mr. Alex here presented a log that is not only detailed, but provides irrefutable photographic and dated evidence of his diligence and, crucially, a near-catastrophic failure directly attributable to the specific task missed during your assigned period." He tapped the crumpled notes Mark and David had provided. "These," he said, holding them up, "do not qualify as a detailed log under any definition. Furthermore, they demonstrate a complete disregard for the protocol Mr. Alex established, which, though perhaps excessive, clearly outlined all necessary tasks." The air in the room went cold. Mr. Thompson cleared his throat. "Based on the clear language of the will and the physical evidence of neglect and subsequent remedial action, I have no choice but to rule that Mr. Mark and Mr. David have failed to meet the conditions of the inheritance regarding the lakeside cabin. Their shares are therefore forfeited and shall be equally divided between the remaining heirs." He didn't have to say it, but the meaning was brutally clear. I got both their shares. My adherence to protocol, the very thing they laughed at, had not only saved the cabin's foundation, but had also made me the sole owner of the most valuable part of the estate. The aftermath was volcanic. Mark and David exploded, yelling about betrayal, clipping the lawn being enough, and how I had played a trick. I simply picked up my binder, looked them both in the eye, and said, "It wasn't a trick. It was a standard operating procedure. You mocked the SOP and failed the inspection. The consequences are your own." They walked out of that office and haven't spoken to me since, refusing to even look at me at Christmas. They lost their inheritance because they couldn't be bothered to use a logbook. I inherited the cabin, and I've since put the CMRP one into permanent effect, keeping the place exactly as Dad would have wanted. It's lonely sometimes, but every time I check that culvert and sign off on my maintenance sheet, I know I did the right thing. I followed the rules that saved the day, so that's my story. I followed military protocol, saved my inheritance, and completely alienated my brothers. My life is organized, my cabin is perfect, but my family is broken. If you were on my side in this whole mess, please like this video right now. Subscribe for more stories like this where rules and consequences collide. And share your final thoughts. Was my protocol-driven approach justified, or did I take my military training too far and use it to deliberately hurt my own brothers? Let me know your stance in the comments section below. I'll see you all in the next story.